John Ulzheimer is known as one of our nation's most recognized credit experts. Having worked for 28 years in the credit industry, John has become one of the most prolific speakers about credit and the go-to authority on answers to credit-related questions. Credit Countdown with John Ulzheimer.
Hello, this is John Ulzheimer. I am a consumer credit expert. I have almost 30 years of experience in the credit industry. I've spent time at FICO, which is the company obviously behind the FICO credit scoring system, and Equifax, which is one of the 3 generally recognized credit reporting agencies in the United States. So today's video, I'm going to talk about the credit invisible. And this is kind of a newer designation. Really, it's kind of like it's almost a renaming of consumers who either have very thin credit reports or no credit reports. So the credit invisible is actually a term coined by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, several years ago, where they actually set out to quantify the number of consumers who either had limited credit histories, no credit histories, or unscorable credit histories. This is another thing that I think is important for people to understand, is just because you have a credit report, it doesn't mean that you have a credit score. Your credit report has to actually qualify to be scorable, and FICO has their minimum scoring criteria, VantageScore has their minimum scoring criteria. So you could actually have a credit report but not have a score. So you're what's called an unscorable file because you have failed the minimum scoring criteria. If you have a very thin credit report, 1 trade line, 2 trade lines, so just a really limited amount of information, then you're either very close to being unscorable, or even if you are scorable, the reliability of that score is sometimes called into question because it's based on such limited information, even though the score may be perfectly valid in a risk assessment context. So this credit invisible issue is not, I wouldn't call it controversial, because people are invisible largely by choice. If you depend on prepaid, if you depend on debit, if you depend on things like Venmo or PayPal, these are not extensions of credit. So you can pay things and nothing ever shows up on your credit report. You could listen to some ill-advising so-called finance experts or consumer advocates that implore you to never do business with credit cards because they're evil, and never borrow money from anybody because debt is evil, which is just silly in my mind. And if you do those things, and you're going to essentially successfully live off the credit grid, which means that someday when you buy a house, you're going to have to write a big fat check. Or if you want to buy a car, you're going to have to write a big fat check, because you're not going to have a credit history to fall back on, and lenders are going to be less comfortable letting you borrow money. So how many credit invisibles are there? Well, I mean, look, no one knows the exact number of credit invisibles, but the quantified number that the CFPB is giving us is somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 million. I've seen reports as low as 30 million. I've seen reports as high as 50 million. So I'm going to split the difference and just say that what we're being told is that the number is around 40 million. 40 million is a lot of people. There's only like a little over 300 some odd million people in this country. So 40 million is over 10% of the number of people who live in this country. So it's a lot of people. And in order for them to not be unscorable or not be credit invisibles, then there are a variety of things that they really are going to have to do. You can't just give someone a credit score. It's not a charitable system where you just kind of throw the window like you're throwing out, Mardi Gras beads or candy at Halloween. You have to earn it. And the reason you can't just give someone a score is because a score has to be a reliable indicator of your credit risk, and you can't just start giving people scores because that's not a reliable method of assigning scores. People's credit reports have to essentially justify whatever their score is. So that means that people are going to have to not live off the credit grid, or they're otherwise going to have to do business with lenders or service providers that actually report information to the credit reporting agencies. You hear kind of some of these talking head blabbermouths sometimes talk about how, credit scores are incentives to get into debt. Let's think about that for a minute. If you get into debt to buy a house, you have a place to live. If you get into debt to buy a car, you have a way to make it from point A to point B. If you get in debt to take out student loans, you're going to get an education, and people who have college degrees make considerably more money over their lifetime than people who do not. That's scientifically proven, so it's not even an arguable fact. And credit cards are one of the only methods of credit where interest is optional. You don't have to pay interest on a credit card. You only pay interest on a credit card if you carry a balance from month to month. I have no idea what the interest rates are on any of my credit cards because I don't care, because I don't carry balances. So, you live on the credit grid. You pay for things that you need and that you want and that make your life more convenient and fruitful and enjoyable. And you can avoid interest almost entirely with credit cards anyways, if you just pay your bills in full every month. That's how you become a credit visible and kind of get up above the radar, if you will, with respect to credit scoring systems. And then you have lenders throwing money at you left and right at near historic interest rates, and then you can pick and choose to do business with whom you like at unbelievable terms. So I actually love the idea of being a credit visible and kind of dispensing with this kind of strange practice of trying to live off the credit grid. So if you have any other questions about credit invisibles or credit reporting or credit scoring, then please drop them in the comment section below and I will do my best to get to them. I'm at the gym. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk again soon.
For more videos and credit tips from John Ulzheimer, go to www.tradelinesupply.com.